They laughed at her torn shoes. They whispered when she opened her old handbag. And when she quietly walked toward her seat, the flight attendant stopped her, right there, in front of everyone, and said, "Ma'am, this seat isn't for people like you." The plane went silent. Cameras started recording. Some passengers smirked. Others looked away. But what nobody knew, was that the poor girl they just kicked off the plane, actually owned the entire airline. And when the truth came out, every single person on that flight wished they could disappear. Before we begin this unbelievable story of pride, pain, and poetic justice, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Goodness Corner, where every story reminds you that kindness still matters. It was 6:30 in the morning when a young woman named Amara quietly walked into the airport. Her jeans were faded, her shoes were worn, and her small handbag looked like it had survived years of travel. Her hair was tied back simply, and her face carried the tired calmness of someone who had seen both storms and sunshine. She wasn't in a rush. She didn't care for the flashing watches, designer perfumes, or loud laughter echoing in the luxury check-in line. She just clutched her ticket, smiled politely at the security officer, and whispered, "Good morning." But people noticed her, for all the wrong reasons. A woman in a bright red coat whispered to her friend, "Look at her, did she even buy that ticket herself?" Another man chuckled under his breath. "Maybe she's in the wrong terminal." Amara heard them. She always did. But instead of reacting, she just looked at the flight information screen and moved forward. She was flying business class on Aurora Air, one of the most prestigious airlines in the country. What nobody there knew, was that she didn't just buy the ticket. She owned the airline. But she never showed it. Never flashed her name. Never demanded special treatment. Because she wanted to see how her employees treated people, especially those who looked ordinary. The boarding gate opened, and the crowd began to line up. Amara waited patiently, even though her ticket said Seat 1A, right in the front of the plane. The gate attendant, a young woman with perfectly styled hair and an overly polite smile, scanned tickets one by one. When Amara finally reached her turn, the attendant's smile faded. Ma'am," she said, her tone suddenly uneasy, "I think there's been a mistake. This ticket is for business class." "Yes," Amara replied softly, "that's correct." The attendant looked her up and down. Her eyes landed on Amara's worn shoes and the faded bag. "Are you sure this is your ticket?" she asked again, forcing a tight smile. Amara simply nodded. "Yes, I'm sure." But the attendant didn't move. She turned to a colleague and whispered something behind her hand. The colleague laughed quietly, glancing back at Amara. Finally, the attendant sighed and said, "Ma'am, could you please step aside? We need to verify your booking." People behind her started murmuring. Someone even pulled out a phone to record. Amara stepped aside calmly, holding her ticket. "Why do you have to check her?" a passenger muttered. "She doesn't look like she belongs here," another replied. "Probably tried to sneak in." Amara lowered her gaze, remembering the hundreds of times in her life she'd been underestimated because she didn't look rich enough, smart enough, or powerful enough. She could have ended it right there, one phone call, one word, and the whole airline staff would bow in apology. But she didn't. Because this was exactly why she traveled anonymously, to test hearts. To see who treated others with kindness when they thought no one was watching. After 10 minutes of awkward waiting, a supervisor finally came over. "What's the problem?" he asked. The gate attendant explained, "This passenger insists she's in business class, but her ticket, well, just look at her." The supervisor frowned. "That's not how we talk about passengers," he said firmly. Then he looked at the screen. "Her booking seems valid. Let her board." The attendant rolled her eyes slightly but scanned the ticket anyway. Amara thanked them and walked quietly down the jet bridge. Inside the plane, she placed her small bag in the overhead bin and sat down. The woman next to her, wrapped in gold jewelry and holding a designer purse, frowned. "Excuse me," she said to the flight attendant, "is this seat supposed to be empty? Because I'm not comfortable sitting next to her." Amara looked up slowly. "Is something wrong?" she asked politely. The woman sniffed. "You look like you work for the airline, not fly in business class. Maybe you should move to the back." The flight attendant smiled apologetically. "Ma'am, maybe we could find another seat." But before she could finish, Amara said softly, "No, it's fine. I'll move." She picked up her bag and quietly walked to an empty seat at the back of the plane, economy class, even though she had paid for, and technically owned, the seat in front. The whispers followed her. Laughter too. Someone said, "See? I told you. She doesn't belong there." But Amara didn't cry. Didn't argue. She just looked out the window as the plane began to taxi. At 30,000 feet above ground, the world below her looked small, just like the minds of those who had judged her. When the drinks were served, the same flight attendant passed by her with a forced smile. "Would you like water?" she asked coldly. Amara nodded, "Yes, thank you." The attendant placed the cup roughly on her tray, spilling a few drops, and walked away without apology. Amara sighed. "So this is how kindness disappears," she whispered. For hours, she sat silently, replaying every insult, every judgment. Her heart didn't break for herself, it broke for how blind people had become to humility. When the plane finally landed, she let everyone leave first. She waited until the cabin was empty before stepping out. Outside the gate, two men in dark suits stood waiting. The same gate attendant who had mocked her earlier saw them approach, and froze. "Good morning, Ms. Amara," one of the men said respectfully. "The board is waiting for you in the VIP lounge. Shall we escort you?" Gasps echoed through the hallway. The red-coat woman dropped her coffee. The attendant's face turned pale. You're Ms. Amara Khan," she stammered. Amara smiled gently. "Yes. I believe we've met." The attendant's hands trembled. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I didn't know." Amara interrupted softly, "That's the point. You didn't know. And yet, you chose to judge." She walked past her, her calm voice carrying more power than any shouting ever could. "Maybe next time," she added, "treat everyone as if they own the sky. Because kindness costs nothing." As Amara entered the VIP lounge, the CEO of Aurora Air and a group of board members stood up to greet her. "Ms. Khan, we're honored to have you here. We didn't expect you to fly today." She smiled faintly. "I wanted to see how things look from the passenger seat." The CEO laughed nervously. "I hope everything went well." Amara looked out the window at the plane she'd just left, the same one where she'd been humiliated moments ago. "Let's just say," she said quietly, "some things need improvement." She didn't mention names. She didn't complain. She didn't need to. Because real power isn't loud. It's silent, like a storm waiting for the right moment to reveal its strength. When the truth surfaced, that Amara Khan was the CEO and owner of the entire airline, every mocking smile froze. The same flight attendant wept, apologizing endlessly. Amara only said softly, "Let this be your lesson, never judge by looks." Then she walked away, leaving humility soaring higher than the plane itself.